Welcome back to Conversations Catapults, the #1 after show for the #1 D&D podcast. I am your host, Nathan, and today I have a search party joining me. Say hello, search party.
Hello, my name is Afterben, and I play the level 7 gnome wizard after Windsor Wallaby on the hit after show, Trials and Trebuchets. After.
Hey, search party here. It's me, Carla, and I play the level 7 Tiefling Rogue, Deckard Larry, and welcome to the show.
Over here, I think I found some. Nope, that's just a weird-shaped rock. Hi, I'm Sarah, and I play Mira Marshawn, the level 7 half-elf bard.
Hi, this is Before Sam, and I play Before Saranev, the level 7 human sorceress.
I love that half of the intros are on a totally different vibe than the other half.
Please, I
We
thank
got
you.
sandwiched.
Sam,
like a
thank you
burger.
so much for following up on my bit.
You're so welcome.
I'm sorry, but I did not get it.
I've been calling it the after show for like 5 episodes now. I didn't think that would be the thing you latch
And now
on
welcome
to.
to the Before show for the after show for the podcast.
We are recording earlier than usual.
The before after show.
Yes. The prequel.
That's true. If y'all can't notice, the energy is a little bit different today because we are actually recording this in the morning instead of in the evening, which is very different for me personally.
Good morning, Arizona.
And just Arizona.
No
How
one
are
else
y'all
is allowed
doing?
listening to this podcast, unfortunately. Only people from Arizona.
We have a very specific audience, and it's Arizona. All right. Y'all just want to jump into it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ask us some questions about our D&D characters.
I wish to
Dive us into that
jump
pool.
off the diving board.
So the main thing for me is, as we get into this, I was curious about this, just hearing your perspective as players, because 122 is very much y'all kind of dealing with the aftermath of 121 internally and as a group. And I wanted to find out, how does having more time as players to process those events affect your character's interpretation or their response? For instance, y'all had moments as characters to respond to everything that's happened, and how long did you all have between recordings to actually think about your character reaction? Was it like a week?
Week and a half?
A week
Yeah,
and a
around
half.
that.
It had to have been a little over a week.
So, does that extra time affect how you play your character, or is it just I'm not going to think about it until we start recording again?
I think about Mira all the time, constantly. She lives inside my brain.
She's playing Wonderwall.
She is. She's just playing Wonderwall, bouncing around
Just
in there.
vibing.
Yeah. So yes, I think having that extra time, it does make me impatient to record again, but I'm definitely thinking about how does Mira feel about this, especially because we recorded 122 after 121 was released to the public, so getting to hear the edited version and see people's reactions definitely had it on my mind.
And how did that, having that on your mind for a week and a half, how did that affect your reaction? Do you think it would have been different if you recorded an episode immediately after 121? And if so, how?
Well, for me, within that week and a half, I had a totally different feeling, which I've talked about in the previous episode of CNC, where I'm like, oh my gosh, did I make the right decision? But then when we started recording and Winsler started talking first,
So good.
and talking about it in character, I had a completely turn of perspective. Obviously there were still I am blaming myself for things, but then realizing that we were all in this together, because I did not know what Winsler was thinking. So hearing it during the episode, there was a turn almost in perspective, which helped me, even though I had that week and a half of dealing with my emotions, then being able to talk to other people about their emotions, there was a change. So even though we had that week and a half to explore what we were feeling, there was still a big difference being able to talk about it with the other characters, because they bring something different to the table. And I had a shift, I believe. I hope that answers our question.
It does. Now, Ben, I was really interested to hear your answer to this, because I think that you have been on the record on this show specifically about oh yeah, no, I think about it when I'm actually playing. And then, when you're not, does it even cross your mind?
So the ending of 121 was definitely high-strung emotion, holy shit, I can't believe this just happened. So for me, I think that was a good place to end, because I believe the week and a half really did help, because it helps me like decompress, like, okay, this is what happened, so now I can look at it like with a fresh mind. I'm not like overcome by the crazy amount of pressure and like emotion that I normally would have. So giving me the week and a half, I was able to sort of like, okay, now that I'm like out of that headspace, I can take a look at what's going on and then see about exactly what Winsler could probably think in that sort of situation, because being able to take myself out of it for a second gives me like a fresher sort of perspective on it, and just allows me to think more clearly as to what my next step would be. And I think like the additional time between 121 and 122, it helped me cement like, okay, this is definitely where I want to go, and so I'm going to do it.
I gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. I really do like how having that extra time allows you to be a lot more intentional with your characterization. And I think that came through a whole lot in 122, which is always a pleasure. Well, excellent. Sam, do you have any, response or thoughts on the question?
I kind of had a mixture because obviously like a lot of stuff that happened during previous recording has been very like emotionally strung, and then we had the week and a half, so it's like you have time to process, but I also had to keep my knowledge of my character didn't have that time to process it. So even though like I can see how my character would react, they're also still trying to figure that step out. So it's kind of like, okay, so you've reached the conclusion yourself as yourself, but now you have to make your character reach that conclusion as well.
And I thought we saw a really good bit of that with Serenip still kind of reeling from everything and taking out that anger on the spooky brick, which is my name for that weird pebble thing, the pebble dispenser.
Just that one brick.
The spooky brick. You know what I mean.
Revenge of the architecture.
Yeah. Listen, school is evil. Right down to the bricks.
Literally, the school itself is evil.
The foundation itself of this school is haunted.
We thought that the progenitor was going to be the big bad, but it's actually the school coming to life and attacking all of you.
Oh, cool. It's going to be like Monster House.
I was just thinking that.
I know.
Oh my god. If I could ever go 1 week without accidentally referencing Monster House, I actually die.
That is a boring week to live.
It's a girl house.
Everyone loves Monster House.
Yeah.
But moving on to one of, I think, a very fun event for y'all was meeting Vanya in the sewers.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to, I'm very impatient. I wanted to get to that right away. Which is like, my question there is, how has, meeting Vanya affected your character's views of their education? Like, because we think about Winsler, who is in a very similar financial, strata as Vanya, as being someone else who, does not have a lot of money for this education, and that has been a source of stress for him. Then we see Vanya, who doesn't have any money and is somehow even, lower down than Winsler in terms of all of that stuff. How did that affect your view of the school and your own, process of getting educated?
Wow, you really ask questions that we never think about. Or at least I never think about it. That's really good.
I think there's a much closer sense of obviously class inequality has been a theme for parts of the podcast in general, but especially when we went down in Nebulosis to see the urchin children in the City of Ghosts, that was oh wow, this is kind of messed up that these kids are sort of being exploited by this genie thing. But at the same time, there is sort of this degree of separation with that, where it's we had to travel through a portal to go there. Whereas sort of this whole situation being in the actual school, I think makes it a lot closer, just sort of cognitively and emotionally. And so I do think there is this greater sense of this school is a little bit perhaps of a messed up place. But I think that Mira still has that sense of, maybe there's a solution to this kind of thing. Maybe if we talk to Crow, he'll understand because she got here before Crow got here and he seems nice. So I think there's maybe still that part that hasn't fully been this school is fucking terrible. But it's definitely a lot just closer just because of the physical and emotional proximity.
If Vanya got enrolled in the school officially, do you think Mira would help her pick out clubs to join?
100%.
Which ones?
Gosh. I would have to speak to her a little more, but I think she should join the book club since she taught herself to read, and that's very impressive.
Very true.
I really wonder if they would actually like let Vanya in as either like a scholar or something, or will she have to go under like the Cinderman like the Cinderman scholarship?
Oh no.
I think so. Okay.
Yog.
Can we please realize this is not actually Serenep's money, it's her parents?
That's why Cinderman.
Yeah, they're gonna donate
Cinderman,
a building.
send me money.
There's a whole can of worms with that whole situation.
I'm so excited to see the Cinderman's reaction to Sarah
I'm
spending
very
a lot of their money.
scared.
But also, like, back to the Vanya question: how, like, did that make your characters think more about their education, or do you think a part of them may have been like, "Stay away, kid. Listen, we got into this school, and all we really have gotten has been trauma in return."
Well, like, I think it's a mix because very clearly it's not. I can't say it's not the school because the school has done some stuff to us, but at the same time, Swim has kind of gotten dragged into the most dangerous step of all, which is being main characters in a D&D campaign. And so a lot of stuff happens to the team because of the hatch and the orbs. Like, a couple of the big bads in this series has been directly involved with the orbs. So it's kind of like, oh, like this, like Vanya is like so like, it's very clear to see like Vanya is very like passionate about their education. Like, they've taught themselves to read. They're living in this little like cubby under the school so that they can go to classes and learn. And like, that's such a passion and dedication that Serenep has taken for granted her entire life. Like, she was given tutors. She's been given these things, and so seeing it is like, oh man, this is someone who's like, who can do something crazy, and they're doing that to like make themselves better, but they are living in a cubby and they should have a warm bed for the night and food, like not in like a cramped space, especially when something dangerous is there. Like that's a dedication that like I feel like with our group, we've definitely like, you know, cheated on exams and like left classes early, like that kind of stuff. Like,
I don't think the Vanya situation has made me like really jaded about my education. I think in Integrity's head, it's sort of like, yeah, be part of the team because the more people in this place there are, like, the more fun it is. It's sort of like sleepovers, you know, like knowing that there's just like more people in this place is just like a big whole party. Like, that's Integrity's idea of a school. People are her age is like around her and like being home where there's like kids, but Integrity does her own thing. So I don't think that it made her necessarily jaded about the education system, because just like what Sarah was saying, where she still believes that that there is a way to get Vanya in without like going overboard and giving all of our savings. Like, I think that we can come up with something, and I would love it if Vanya stays, please.
Good to know. Well, hopefully Luke will listen to this and hear your pleas.
Please.
Oh, I, Sarah, don't think this is going to happen, but the characters.
Vanya's my new
we know how
roommate.
terrible of a school this is, but
Yeah.
Oh, well, excellent. Now, this is going to be a fun question.
Ooh.
And Carla, I apologize in advance for this one.
Uh-oh.
How has Integrity's bond with the progenitor affected your character's view of her?
Oh.
Or BFFs.
You all, like, talking about, like, the time being different. It was, what, maybe 48 hours ago that you learned that she was a warlock? And now she's communing with the progenitor, and birds are falling out of the sky around her as she goes into a catatonic state. She then comes out of it and then has information that she would have no way of knowing. That's got to be scary, right? Like, I can't imagine, like, especially for Serenep, who has such a protective energy towards Integrity. Like,
Yeah.
how has this changed your character's view of her? And Integrity also, like, or shit, I did the thing that Carla does, which is refer to Carla by her
No, I'm
character
Integrity.
name.
I'm Integrity. No.
But
What
also,
are
like,
you?
Carla, like, how has your view like changed of your own character, or do you think it has at all?
I would almost say like Winsler and Integrity have like a pretty silly relationship, I would say. I would say they probably get along very well in terms of like the antics that they can get up to. But I would say now that Integrity's a warlock and is like demonstrating this warlock power to everybody and like the way that it was done, I think it's like kind of scary, but also sort of like, I don't want to say pity, because that's a I don't like that word that much, but it's along those lines of like it's scary now, and I just wonder how bad it could get if it continues on this trend. And it's like, okay, is there anything that we might be able to do to like mediate this, or maybe find a solution to it? But it's just a tricky situation, and it's almost like it's just probably strikes fear.
Is that tempered at all by her usefulness, as her warlock powers have been, it was nice to get that confirmation that Artis is still alive. Do you think that kind of balances it out, or do you think that isn't, worth what it is doing to her?
No, I wouldn't say anything that comes from using the warlock powers is a good thing, no matter how beneficial it really is, because Winsler understands that even the smallest things that like happen, or the smallest things that sort of like intervene, can have big effects later on. And the more it happens, it's just going to be a bigger splash at the end.
I love that the kid who is looking into becoming a lich is like, I don't mess with warlocks.
Yeah, let's shoo them away.
I think kind of following what you said, Nathan, about like yeah, Serenep is very protective of her cousin. And I think the antics up to this point have been very like, okay, she's just, silly, like not as serious in situations, that kind of stuff. And definitely when she first heard about the whole warlock thing, her immediate connection was, my cousin is a victim of this crazy thing. And now seeing her use that power while it was to help them find Artis and like help ease some of their fears, there's also this thought of like, you just told us how dangerous this is and now you're using it. And it's sort of a feeling of, I love you, my cousin, you're an idiot. and I'm exasperated by this.
Oof. Do you think there could be a point where, if Integrity continues down this warlock path, that Serenep may want to sever the relationship?
I'm gonna be 100% honest, because like, especially with everything that just recently happened, like, I think there could very well be a point, if this continues going the way it is, where Serenep is just going to want to completely sever any connection to, honestly, and I hate to say this, like, perhaps everything with Wildcliff, like, but like, yeah, if it continues going down this kind of path, she may very well just take a step back and say, you know what, this stress that I'm dealing with right now is not worth it, because I try to help and it just keeps getting worse. And it's kind of like in a toxic relationship, not to say that anyone in Wildcliff is really toxic, but like that, like for my own mental health, I have to move away from this and just not look at it anymore, kind of thing.
It's interesting you say that.
Yeah.
Just because, the alternative for Serenep is, to be fair, I don't know the full layout of the world, but, what would it be, being educated in her family home again? It would be going back to the Cindermans? Or do you think that she would try to just make her own way? And we don't have to worry about that. I know it's a very big theoretical, like we've gone down a lot of what ifs on this path here.
Yeah.
So if you don't know, it's okay. But I just wanted to push that a little bit.
There are plans I have set aside for like every what if situation, I'm going to be honest. Like, I have a list of things like to the side, completely I don't even know what the right word would be, like non-corporeal things to the side that I've thought of before. I think if a situation does come up, there will be a plan in place already.
Good to know. Now, Sarah, I'm especially interested in your answer to this question,
Mm-hmm.
just because of the boat conversation
Yeah.
that Integrity and Mira had, and keeping that in mind with what has just recently happened.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that the conversation Mira had with Integrity on the boat still holds in terms of, Mira is not happy about the fact that Integrity is a warlock, partly out of just concern for Integrity and partly out of like, you are a warlock to this person who killed possibly millions and millions of people all at once, including like this person who I speak to who I'm not entirely sure I trust at this point. Like, I still want to be like, hey, ma'am, what the fuck? But there is still very much that there in terms of this is extremely dangerous for everybody. It's dangerous for you. It's dangerous for me. But Mira does like recognize that Integrity didn't want this in this specific iteration. Like, she understands the situation at this point. She's spoken to Integrity about it. And so it's very much like, I don't like this, but I know it's not really your fault. And whatever sort of bad thing happens as a result of this, even if I am pissed about it, I will be there for you, if that makes sense.
It does.
Because I think that is the kind of response, sort of the support that, Mira would like to have if something similar were to happen to her.
Hell yeah, I can't wait for the Mira Bard lock.
No, not specifically being a warlock, but like, there's everything with like her snake arm being sort of this also like this very powerful thing that came with some kind of deal with an extraplanar being that she can't control. And so I think there is that understanding there of like, I don't like it, but I get it.
Mm-hmm. I think for Integrity, okay, because like it's been a while since like the question was asked. So the question was like,
it was for the rest of the party. It was how has seeing Integrity really lean into her warlock powers in the past 2 episodes, how has that affected their view of her? And like it was also, Carla, does that affect your own view of your character? Does that affect Integrity's view of herself?
I think as for Carla, when I first became a warlock, initially I was like, oh my gosh, yes, something new powers, I guess. And then I started realizing and then I told Luke, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can use Hex on like during the fight. And then he'll be like, okay. But then in his face, it's like, they're totally going to know that you're a bad person. I'm like, okay. But obviously like, that's something that Integrity does not know. So like, I'm like, oh, I think I made a bad decision here. That's Carla's perspective of Integrity. But as for Integrity, I think that there is like a change in how she views herself because she is under almost like the influence of something that is very sinister. But I feel like in her head, she wants to utilize it, like might as well, there's this something that I really need. I need to know that Artis is alive. Like, I'm freaking out and I just want to know how else can we connect and make sure that at least he's all right and it's not going to be for nothing because we might be risking our lives here. So the next closest thing is like, oh, I have this thing. I don't necessarily like it 100%, but since I'm already suffering from it,
might as well make it useful.
Yes. Like, obviously in the future, if there is a way to like cut off that tie, sure, why not? But there's this thing that there's a goal that I need to achieve, and that is find out that Artis is alive. So I'm going to, I guess, talk through the orbs and hope that will help because I'm assuming that he has his orb with him. So that's like Integrity's view of the whole warlock relationship as of the moment. Because it's already tied to her. She will use it. Although she's afraid, she also wants to be brave in a way. Like while talking to the progenitor, I was like, I'm really scared of you right now, but you're in a chair, so I know you're not gonna slap me. But I was very nervous talking to them. But yeah, that's like Integrity's general aura or thought when it comes to using the progenitor for her benefit as well.
Excellent. Well, we are all watching her career with great interest.
Please look forward to it.
It'll be fun to see where that goes. Well, that was a heavy question. Do y'all want to lighten it up with a game before we sign out?
Let's do it.
I can't wait to win again.
We'll shut it.
Ooh, talking some big shit already. Ben finally establishing himself as the heel of the show. Okay.
Yeah, he'll need some healing after this.
Oh, fuck.
Are we counting like arcs, like points per arc or points per forever?
Oh, points are forever, Carla. I'm sorry. There is no clean slate
Points
here.
are forever.
Points don't matter, but they do last until the end of time.
Oh my gosh. When I die and like there's like the what's the thing? Like the crypt or like the place where they put
The
your
pearly
name.
gates?
Will be, and
The
then
mausoleum?
yeah, you'll put like my score at the bottom.
0 points.
I
I absolutely will.
was gonna say that Nathan has like a notebook where they have our names and the points, and then when we die, then if one of us die, they just cross it off the
That's
page.
not an obituary, is it? Or is that something else?
In the obituary in the paper, they write the score at the very bottom.
They can freeze
Aw.
it in that like the place where they freeze seeds for when the world eventually ends. Like all the way up in the cold.
Yeah, you mean the bunker?
Yeah, the bunker where they put like all the seeds of the entire world.
Yeah.
They can put
Oh,
like
yeah.
that notebook just to like store that information forever until the end of time.
And then in
Wow.
the future, someone's gonna go up there and be like, I don't know what any of this means.
Yeah, when it happens, y'all will have to like declare in your will who gets your points. That
okay.
way the games can keep on going.
There we
But
go.
anywho, let us go ahead and get started with a little game of tinfoilery.
Great name.
It's a name, all right.
It's a good
I came
name.
up with that name. Don't you dare.
It's better than my bad names for it. So, anywho,
Unbelievable.
as you all know, the rules of the game are simple. I will present 3 fan theories, 2 of which are from actual fans, and 1 of which is from me. You have to find the one fan theory that is from yours truly.
Mm-hmm.
So, is everyone ready to begin?
Yes.
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 Perfect. We're starting off with a very hot one here, which is integrity will eventually become the being who watches over the convergence of realities. And all of her behaviors actually stem from her evolving into such a higher being. She doesn't understand that because she has yet to actually take the current Watcher's place, but when she does in the future, she retroactively begins to experience the world weirdly. This can explain the 2-dimensional orbs that she has, tasting blood, which is actually her tasting iron, which as a 5th-dimensional being, she'll be able to experience all things as they are at once. But that's the first theory. The second is that the progenitor arrived in or on a crescent-shaped metal thing when we saw their flashback to Shiora, similar to a spaceship, which means that they are from a technologically advanced civilization.
Ooh.
Ooh, I like that one.
And the final is that the progenitor has actually been Artus's warlock patron this whole time, and is trying to use integrity to kill Artus and regain the bit of power they lent to him now that he is wasting it.
That one's yours. And sorry, go on.
Wait, what?
No, I that's just my guess, but
All right, we have one locked in for the third one being mine.
I feel like the first one is one that I haven't heard before, so I'm thinking the first one might be yours, just because the other 2 were like progenitor related.
wait, can you tell us which other 2 listeners submitted the other 2 theories? Don't not like which listener submitted which theory, but like because you did last time and that was very helpful.
How about I tell you one of them?
Okay.
Fine.
Rowan.
Okay.
Superfan
Okay, let me
Rowan.
just message Rowan.
So what was the first one
Hey,
again? Because
Rowan.
the first one seemed a little sketchy.
The first one was that integrity is going to be the being who watches over the convergence of all realities.
Okay.
And that explains why she experiences the world in such an odd way, thereby making canon all of the odd things that we have seen through Carla's play.
Why do you not want to say who the other listener is, Nathan? Why do you not want to
because
say?
it's
Could be
Nathan.
that both
Nathan
theories
came
are
up
from
with
the
2
same
of them.
person, perhaps. Who's to say?
Why do you not want to tell me, Nathan?
Because I make the game, and
Nathan?
these are the rules.
Nathan,
so we
please
got-
tell me.
I'll be happy to tell you after
I want to know
everyone
if it's
locks in
going to
their
affect my
guesses.
vote because there's a slight possibility, but I would really like to know.
We're all about making informed decisions here.
We love a good informed decision.
I love watching you
I'm not
guys
gonna
all
let
just
y'all
gang
bully
up.
me into this.
Please.
Okay, the other one is Luca.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Okay.
So I like the advanced technology theory. That one's cool. And the progenitor being Artus's warlock. Both of those sound pretty like they sound like good theories that I think, okay, this would make sense. The first one, it's a bit of a stretch.
Really? You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I think the middle one, my mind immediately like went to that as well. Like, oh my gosh, they came down with a spaceship.
On one
I think
hand-
that someone could have gone.
On one hand, Luca likes spaceships. On the other hand, Luca likes artists dying.
I think that
here's-
Luca likes artists
that
dying
was-
more.
Here's
I would
my
I knew that was going to
an unhealthy amount.
yeah. Well, here's my 2 cents on it. I think the progenitor has a lot of theories around it because we've gotten to know the progenitor over, how long. The hook deity thing that watches over literally everything in terms of like time and eventuality and fate. We only met them once, and we hardly know anything about them.
But we know a lot about integrity.
True, but I feel like it might be a bit of a stretch. So I'm going to go with the first theory as being yours.
I'm less confident in it, but I'm still going with 3.
Now, I don't remember the rules of the first time we played this game. I've honestly forgotten most of what the rules are for any of the games that we've ever played. I am so sorry. But I don't think one of the rules was the theory that you put in, Nathan, has to not make sense in some way. And I find it weird that that is like the argument that Ben is using to
I'm just saying it's because
Nathan's.
I'm saying it's Nathan's because I've never heard anybody propose theories like that before.
Okay.
Also, there is a metagame aspect of like, y'all know that I listened to both episodes a mere few hours before recording this with y'all, and I would have had to come up with theories then.
Deductive
You could have come up
reasoning.
with theories at any time because the theories don't immediately pertain to the most recent 2 episodes. You could have had these prepped for weeks.
That's true.
Who's to say?
We are literally ripping into you right now.
I feel like I'm the most blind of the contestants in this because I'm not looking at all the theories on Discord. So it's
I want to be clear, these are not theories that have shown up on the Discord. These are ones
Okay,
that have
perfect.
been DM'd to me privately.
Okay.
So like these are not assigned to anyone in public.
But it's kind of like, oh, these people who like regularly make theories, this is kind of like on brand to say, and I don't know what their usual on brand theories are.
That's absolutely fair.
I'm still sticking with 1.
I don't want to say 1 because generally in a game of chance, the outlier of subject matter isn't actually the one that's different. And this is my logic for trying to pick. It's usually a red herring to kind of throw you off of the actual answer. So I'm going to say that your theory, Nathan, is the second one about aliens.
Whoa, everyone is divided.
Be the tiebreaker, Carla.
Be
Oh
the
my
tiebreaker.
gosh.
Be the tiebreaker.
Here's your chance to get a point.
Okay. Just because I think that the second one seems like a very like people will like go straight to that. So I feel like that is a theory that is actually quite common and exists, something that will exist immediately. The third one, knowing that Luca wants artist dead,
It's on brand for Nathan and it's on brand for Luca. That's the tough part about number 3.
Dang it.
what do you mean Nathan loves artists?
Everyone wants artists.
Look at their
Citation
face.
needed.
They do not.
Citation needed.
I'm gonna love artists a lot more when he's 6 feet under.
Oh my god. Jesus.
Nathan.
I think I'm going to go with Ben here.
It will be your downfall.
Stop!
Ben has already
Carla, is
admitted
that your
defeat.
final answer?
I'm going to press the button and finalize my answer.
Okay, so we have Ben and Carla believing that I had made up the idea that that integrity is going to
There's no difference at this
be
point.
watcher.
Carla's going to become the watcher.
Integrity's taken
that's
over.
What it
Carla's
actually
the
is.
watcher, actually. Yes.
It's actually going to be Carla.
Their souls have merged.
Sam believes that I made up the thing about the progenitor coming in on a spaceship.
Yeah.
And for some reason, Sarah thinks that I believe artists to be a warlock whose patron is also the progenitor.
How much magic have we seen artists do?
And for that reason, Sarah is the only one walking out of here with a point today.
Dang.
Damn.
The first theory is courtesy of Luca, who sent me the most batshit fever dream of a theory I've ever read in my life.
That sounds like it. Because that was, whoa.
Luca, you betrayed
Thank you,
us.
Luca.
I thought you wanted Artist dead.
Listen,
Hell
you only
yeah,
betrayed
Rowan,
yourself
talking to
by
me about
bandwagoning on with
aliens,
me.
Yes.
I'm not bandwagoning with you. I made a decision all to myself because I am.
Yeah, but you
bad
still
at-
agreed with me.
You know what, Ben? Don't even.
Can I just say, as you were naming them out, and I said, how much magic have we actually seen artists do? My brain went, ooh, wait a second.
Yeah, he got owned by vines after making a fireball once, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe.
He
Squishy
also did
warlock.
some
Oh, yeah.
But I had a
magic
whole
in the
moment of like,
Nesca
oh yeah, what if
fight,
he's
but-
pretending to be weaker so that we don't find out? Which, number one, what a dick move. And number
But
two,
also, I think it would be a fun twist.
Listen, I
It's
just
like-
know that your brand is beleaguered mentors who, used to be warlocks. So,
Oh.
I know things.
No one else is going to get that reference besides 2 people, one of whom edits this podcast.
What if the birds
And my
are
congratulations to both of them.
oh my gosh, what if the birds are like a warlock secret society and it's like they just need to get the
dude.
other warlock and then I
God.
go in and it's just like a cult of warlocks
I
and then
was-
I'm like, oh my gosh, artists. It's like the Spider-Man and it's like, you.
I was so sad for you to for some reason say, yeah, what if the birds just work for the bourgeoisie?
That's the bourgeoisie.
Well,
Bird
with
council,
that joke,
bird
we are
council.
going to go ahead and sign off. I have got to slide into some DMs with our good dungeon master, Luke. Thank you all for joining me this morning.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate
Thank you for having us.
I really appreciate it. And
Thank
I look
you.
forward to talking to you all again sometime soon.
This
Hope
was
you all have
so
a
much
wonderful
fun.
day.
This was fun.
I'm so glad.
This was.
I
I
love,
love it.
this morning afternoon thing. And
It's
it's
a
like
good
a
vibe.
Sunday, it's just like a relaxing conversation with friends. Like
We
That's a
had
great
deep
way to start
conversation.
the day.
We had funny conversation. It was a good time.
It was a good time.
We vibing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm sure that our listeners love the sound of us just patting ourselves on the back for making such a good fucking
Guys, aren't we just a
podcast.
great
Hell yeah.
podcast? Number one podcast for a reason. Am
We
I
are
right?
so
Damn
good.
right. You know it, Sam. All right. I am going to head over to talk with Luke. I hope all of you will have a wonderful day and
Me too.
stay tuned for sliding into the DMs.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Welcome back to another installment of Sliding into the DMs. I am your host, Nathan, and this is Luke, who sounds like much more normal than I currently do. I have a sore throat, and so my voice is just going to sound a little bit sexier, I think, this episode.
Well, you have a sore throat from being out on that there sea there, Captain.
Oh, yeah, I've got the Fisherman's Friend, like, right now, which is just going to make this hell for you to edit when you can just hear the sounds of me having a mint swirling around my mouth.
Oh, it's not the worst sound that people make during the recording.
What would be the worst sound that people make during the recording?
Some
'Cause-
people exclusively eat foods that go crunch and snap. That's the only food that I think they actually eat. And bottles that are exceptionally crinkly because they're purchased from the Japanese store and the bottles are for some reason very crinkly.
But also, what about like an old-timey telephone ringing? Because I listened to the rough cuts of the episodes, and that was one that was featured prominently in 123, I believe.
It's true, yeah. You
Every
know
time
that
I heard
from
it, it
just-
made me jump out of my skin. And I was like, I cannot wait for the actual episode to come out. That way I can listen to this
Yeah.
without the curse of the telephone.
The rough cuts suck. They suck to listen to. You live a tortured existence putting this show together, Nathan. Thank
Oh.
you so much.
I'm just passing it along because now that I've mentioned it on CNC, you are going to have to include that in the blooper reel. That way people know what I'm talking about. You might as well
Yeah.
go ahead and make a note to yourself right now.
I'll just put the ringing in like right here.
Up.
Yeah.
Um,
She's like
Sarah Neff is.
Do you hear me? I'm talking to you.
Sarah.
I'm so tempted to just pick the phone up and put it down right now.
Hello.
Oh, that sounds perfect. Yeah. No more need for the bleeps. Now, if I ever want to say that my last name is Bleep, you have your choice between the telephone ringing, or you can also do the sound of you
Bleep
just
it.
saying the word bleep, which I just assume you're going to throw
Yeah.
in right there.
Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's enough riffing. I guess we better get on with the actual show, huh? I mean, we don't have
Yeah,
to.
I suppose.
We don't have a boss here,
Yeah.
like keeping us on track,
Yeah, it's true. She's in the other section.
Exactly. And honestly, if she listens to the second half of Conversations and Catapults, I'll be aghast. I don't
Yeah.
imagine many people listen to the sliding into the DMs part.
Yeah, this is the stinker half. People just tune out
That's-
like halfway through. They hear that music.
I front load all of the talent, and at the beginning of the episode, I'm like, oh, we got to get the players in there. We got to like draw them in. All right, now I'm just going to leave a break. No commercial, just a break for no reason. And then have Luke come on later. Oh, you know what sucks about me having a sore throat?
What?
This is going to ruin the illusion that I record these in one day. Now it's going to be like, oh, now we know which one of these is later.
Well, you recorded with the cast, and then you went for a quick sortie on your private yacht, and then came back, and you just developed some sort of salty, sea-dogged intonation, you know?
Do I really sound like an old sailor?
No,
right
it's just because
now?
you're wearing a hat that says captain.
Oh, you... Way to make a joke that is not going to translate over to audio. You're a podcaster for like 2 years now, 3 years. You should know better.
Oh, so the show.
The show, as you all know, this is the part of Conversations Catapults where I get to ask our lovely DM a few questions about the behind-the-screen secrets that he may have for us. And the main one that I want to ask you about is going to be, to start off with, it is my personal opinion that warlocks are a great class
Yeah.
for your DM. It's like a gift to give your DM, because then the DM gets to play a patron. And there are so few times where you get to play something that is so sinister and that isn't going to be attacked by the party immediately.
Because they have this tie to them. There's this necessary closeness. It's the same thing as almost like in media, in movies. It's really easy to like introduce your character to the villain immediately. And D&D, that's hard because they can just attack them. And there's really good ways to get around that, but they like touch into like the DM fiat territory. And so patrons present that in a beautiful way that are much less fiat-y.
If you want another good way of getting your like evil person a chance to like monologue or really get a chance to like do some exposition, delayed blast fireball is also a really good way of holding an entire room hostage, because you could just have them holding it and be like, hey, if you attack me, I'll lose concentration.
Yeah.
And we all go
I
up.
think one of my go-to moves is really in exploration. Adjacent to that is like the good old glyph of warding, where I think we've seen it in the podcast in Scandal, where I was like, this passageway is definitely going somewhere. Glyph of warding, blam, explosion, right? It's just like
We love
a
it.
catch-all. But warlocks, they're really neat and fun.
Yeah, what was it like being able to roleplay the progenitor in this patron role with integrity?
Oh,
Especially for such a big ass that she was giving to you.
yes. Like, tell us where Artis is, because you need to think. I think of that as like both the trying to run the character and trying to run the game, and of course making that a fun experience for everyone. And so just outright answering a question like that can like destroy a lot of fun, because you're removing so much of the tension which you've like tried to build up. Because I gave them that scene weeks and weeks and weeks ago of what's happening with Artis Artesian in the undercampus, etc., to build that dread and that tension, right, in the players' minds, right? Like, imagine for yourself, and I'll leave you to think on what is happening down there. And so if Integrity just asked and rolled really well on that persuasion check, I don't know, even if she had have done amazingly, I wouldn't have just told her outright what the dealio was, because that's no fun, nor is it what the progenitor would do. And so that presented itself an interesting problem of like, you're asking something here. It's a very interesting thing you're trying to do. And I'm going to say yes to you trying to do this thing and trying to contact your patron because she took an extra level of warlock. Integrity is now a level 2 warlock, right?
Right, and this is a good way of symbolizing that growth in there outside of the mechanical growth that also occurred, like learning new spells and such.
I directly told Carla out of recording, like, I only let you do that because you took an extra level in warlock, right? If she hadn't done that, absolutely no go. She would have just been like a goober holding her like orb, being like, can you please tell me? But so that's like the like running the game perspective to have on it. But then there's also like the character perspective of like the progenitor in that moment, right?
Yeah, Do you have, I remember you mentioning for Ferdinand how you had like a kind of a list of adjectives that you would use to describe Ferdinand. Do you have something like that for the progenitor, like a series of directives for that character?
Oh, interesting. Do you mean goals about goals that they're setting out to obtain, or do you more so mean attributes of theirs, like aspects of them?
I was thinking a little bit of both, how you were explaining how Ferdinand is like a backstabbing, good for nothing, like little cretin who is only out for herself.
Yes.
That may not be the exact words, but you know the sticky note that I'm referring to.
You freaking nailed it, though. That's like the one word, like the couple word synopsis. For the progenitor, I don't have something like that. Although I probably should do that at this point. Mostly because that's a relatively new addition to like the style of prep. Because my style of prep changes every single time I go down to write. So things just pop up out of nowhere sometimes. I think I might go and prepare stuff for the progenitor and list out goals and attributes. I do know the way that I currently do it is just I know which gives me a lot of flexibility with the progenitor is anytime he's in a scene, I want him to be overwhelming almost.
I was literally going to use that exact word for it. It is very much like he is. Progenitor is he, him, or they, them?
He, they-ish is what we've typically used.
Okay, gotcha. But they really do feel like they dominate the space that they, like any scene that they're in, they are the dominant force in it.
That's
You get that a lot with the progenitor interrupting and talking over integrity.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. There's an aspect of that that's really lost in audio of like this how scared Carla playing integrity looks when because typically I'll just let the players talk and talk and talk and talk and jabber. And so when there is an antagonistic NPC who just stops them or talks over them or speaks loudly and forces them into a position of cowering, right? Then it's weird, I think, for them as players, and especially for Carla, where this is her first campaign and doesn't interact with a ton of NPCs like that. Just that aspect of actually eliciting that response from the players is that facial expression is a bit lost in audio, but I think it's still conveyed really well. But that's just
it's conveyed very well through audio, I will say. I could definitely hear how scared Carla was.
But another thing, the scene from a couple of episodes ago in Living Memory with Sarah as Empress Terrassus and the progenitor also in that scene, I would point to as being a really interesting one to show what I'm talking about, because the progenitor's still being still deferring to Terrassus, but also is doing these same it has this same body language or motions that they do with integrity or with presumably the other people who hold orbs, which is getting very close to them, the tongue flicking out, just generally trying to present themselves, or successfully presenting themselves, I should say, as an overwhelming presence in that room. And then there's that weird power dynamic I think I mentioned a couple of CNCs ago, where Terrassus nominally is in charge here, right? She is still the Empress here. She is still there are still requests being made of her, right? If it's permitted, if you permit it, if you'd allow this, right? But the progenitor is, I don't know, it's taking power from a position without power, if that makes any sense. They should be, for all intents and purposes, in that moment, subservient, right? You're in front of a monarch, you're in front of this ruler of a great empire, and yet you still are acting the way you act with these people who control orbs, this person who you have a pact with, that kind of thing. So that, I think, shows that's what I want from the progenitor in scenes that he's in, right? Does that make sense?
To me, it feels like the progenitor is a source of water, while in that moment, Terrassus is someone who could build a dam.
That's a very good way of putting it. I really like the way you put that.
Thank you. Because there is she has a degree of control, but dams can still break.
Yes.
And water is still an incredibly powerful force.
Yes.
I will say that the progenitor's overwhelming nature can also kind of be a blessing in disguise for our players, because one of the things that you do when you let them talk their way into trouble a lot of that time, where you do not interrupt them and you do let them lead themselves, we get a Mira and Loud situation, which is just offering up a bunch of shit and then Loud just coming in at the end and saying yes to all of it. I was almost kind of grateful that the progenitor was not just letting Integrity talk herself into losing more of herself to it.
Another thing that I thought was really interesting. I don't know if, the episode that this conversation actually happened in isn't out at the current time of recording, unfortunately, but I am very interested to see what not only like the players and the audience, I guess I'll ask you as well, because you're like the stand-in there as a person who's not experienced it firsthand but has listened. But I don't know if you caught that the progenitor was like fastened in a way to a chair that entire scene.
It was very odd to think about, because I usually think of the progenitor as just a snake. And so it's very weird to think of it like buckled into a chair.
Yeah.
I don't know if the words were buckled. It was like fastened.
I think buckled is a good way of putting it, though, right? In some way tied to, chained, fastened, anything to a chair. But that was really interesting to me. And I'll just say, as like a straight up tell of like, that's because this is the first time Integrity has, on her terms, come and spoken with the progenitor, as opposed to the reverse.
This is why people tune in. And if they don't tune in, this is why they should.
Yeah.
Because then they get that, that kind of juicy behind the screen secret.
You hear that, players? This is why you should listen to this section. I tell you things. Imagine if they had listened when I said that I was going to give them an artist scene, They would have been prepared.
Oh, God. Right? If only.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Playing warlocks is playing patrons for warlocks is really, really fun, though. And I'm glad I get the opportunity to do it, because I've done it badly in the past. In a past campaign,
it's a very easy thing to do poorly.
Yeah, because every other class, for the most part, you can just be very passive about them being their class, right? Like if someone's a fighter, you can be like, say they want to play a typical knight archetype, just in this very bad example of what a fighter can be, because I think a fighter is a very fun class and it can be very, very many cooler things than just a knight, even though knights are cool.
Hell yeah.
But for the sake of this example, if someone just wants to be a knight, you can be like, oh, there's a knightly order and yada yada, right? And like build that into the world in a meaningful way. But that doesn't always present itself. Like, I don't know, there's just like a certain, it's like a delicacy having a warlock in the party, because that's just most of the time, I don't want to say always, but that can be really delicious drama just sitting there waiting for you, like handed up to you by just the system, right? Versus a lot of the other classes.
I think the only other class that comes close is a paladin, where they're having to constantly like follow their oath.
Yes.
And as a DM, you can put them in situations where that will be tested.
Yes.
I think that's the only thing that truly comes close, besides you could possibly do a cleric losing their powers, but even then, I think it doesn't compare to, like, a warlock is a much more terrestrial being than getting your power from a literal god.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I agree strongly with you. Warlocks and paladins, and then I think the second string would be like clerics and druids, at least in my interpretation of like what I enjoy about druids, which we've not seen at all because they don't exist in this world.
Yeah, have we ever talked about that on CNC, how you just don't have druids in this world?
I don't think we have, and I don't think that anyone outside of, like, I think anyone that's doesn't participate in the forums for the show or like the Discord for the show would even have known that. I think I might have said it once in passing in a question and answer or a mailbag, but it's really easy to miss. But yeah, none of them, they ain't there.
Hell yeah.
And that's,
and we're not going to address it in this episode either. That's just a fun fact for y'all.
It's true. But the players questioned me about, the reason I brought that up is because it is a little segue to talking a bit more about warlocks. Is the players questioned me for like 2 years of like, Luke, are there any druids? Are there any warlocks? Are there any druids? Are there any warlocks? Blah, 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 on and on, like intermittently, right? Can we level up? Is there warlocks? Can we level up? Is there druids? That style.
You should, leveling up is a fun thing to do.
It is. Yeah, we can talk about that if you want.
We don't need to talk about that. Listen, I get it. You're constrained by the setting, and progression is a difficult thing to balance, especially when they're all casters.
Yeah, I also thought that the campaign would be wrapped up in one school academic year, if that makes sense. So as soon as like that, like as soon as Pitter Patter hit and Pitter Patter was long, I was like, oh, the scope has expanded greatly. But none of my, like, and my brain knows that, but then my prep didn't catch up with that until recently of like, the scope has expanded. But the warlock thing, I'm glad that we have a warlock. There's our other warlocks in the world and in the setting. There's not any druids. Straight up, none.
And what's the world called again?
It definitely has a name somewhere in my many pages of notes. I know the name. I refuse to speak it aloud because that, in a way, canonizes a name I'm not incredibly happy with.
Now, Luke, we've discussed like the intricacies of playing a patron NPC, but what about playing a patron's NPC, as we saw with Vanya?
That's good shit, Nathan.
I'm like a professional now. I'm 6 episodes in, and I'm fucking killing this shit.
I didn't see where that was coming. Oh my god, it was like a chicane turn, eh? That's what you call him, isn't it? I don't know.
But tell me about
NPCs.
What goes through taking the material that you were given to create a NPC like from the Patreon.
Yeah, it's scary first and foremost. I would put it in the same tier as playing a character from like one of the. If one of the player characters they have people in their backstory, right? And if one of those people was to come into the spotlight, it would be like playing them because, so for example, Mira's family exists and we've talked about them, or like the Idleberries, etc. And so if they come into the spotlight, as they will in Autumn's End, I'm saying it because it's the truth, then I'm genuinely just very anxious or nervous about doing justice to what the player, either whether that be in this example Sarah or Carla, have imagined for their family, right? Because they have a lot of thoughts about how that is, and I don't know if I can perfectly capture that, right? The same way my notes aren't canon until they're in the show, that NPC isn't canon until they're in the show, but there is a certain attachment to the way you imagine them, right? And so for the patron NPCs, I often have that same apprehension. So I don't want to just we have a ton of them, so I could realistically just chuck them around willy-nilly, just like blah, 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 throw them around every corner, just like fodder.
Canon Nathan shows up in Issathil.
Yeah, why not?
He's setting fires all over the place for no reason, baby.
I hope we get into the fire stuff. I hope they don't just sidestep the pebbles again.
It's so weird to me, and yet they're like, we don't want anything to do with it. I think it's
hilarious. They're like dodging around the pebble plot so strong at this point. It's like
the fact that it's my NPC who is connected to it makes me so mad because they know it's right. Like his name is Canon Nathan. He's literally just the most XP of me that you could possibly have. I would do the blam voice, but my throat, as I mentioned, is so sore right now that I cannot do it safely.
I would do the blam voice, except I need like divine in the moment inspiration to do it. Like you need like that pressure of like, you gotta just keep the show going, right? Like that the adrenaline you run on when you're running the game for your friends of just like, we have to move forwards, right? And that adrenaline is what makes patron NPCs possible, because there's the notes that the patrons give me. I read through those notes. Sometimes they send character sheets. Sometimes they send me a giant shit ton of messages about them, and I'll just try my best to read through those. The same as like when you're starting a game and you get all your players, and some players really love backstories and send you like 17 pages of backstory.
The worst.
I typically, in the past, I would do that just because if I was really in love with an idea, right? Because I don't get like I don't get inspired to write very often. So if I ever did get inspired to write, I would write something and then I would mention it offhandedly to my DM, like, oh, I wrote this thing. Is that anything you would care about? Most of the time they would be no. And we'd move on. But
I am the DM who doesn't want more homework. Like, if you're going to write out, like, I fully appreciate, like, people writing out a backstory. You gotta cap that shit at 5 pages.
Got shit to do.
Because otherwise, most of it, Like, you went too detailed for me to do much with besides just playing the story that you've already written. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. So there's like a physical description of them. There's like general traits about them, what year and like the department of the school they would be in, which are like those strongly inform the character. And then like little quirks about the character are really key for me. Because when I make characters and NPCs for myself, I don't typically write out an extended backstory for the character, right? Like, I just write, they are like this, and here are a couple of things about them. And then the rest is like on my feet. Like, you know, we're doing some jazz music over here. Let's make an NPC together.
Oh yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's the most fun way to create NPCs, right? And I can point to just like a nothing improvised NPC in episode 122, like that infirmary worker, that healer, who's just like a nothing NPC. They just existed there to be like, hello, no mentor here, carry on. But then it turns into a little
Ganal and Lucia version, like, of forgettableness, like just a nothing NPC.
This is absolutely nothing NPC. And just them making a single roll and then having this awkward conversation, that defines them a little bit as a character and was fun. And I didn't have any idea that character existed before. So when a patron hands me a binder of notes and character sheets and ideas, I go, interesting. And I try to parse that into my style of prep. And sometimes things get unfortunately lost in translation with that. And I hope that they understand that, because there's the caveat of I will change things as is necessary.
Right, and I wanted to ask, like, what determined, like, the necessary changes, or if it was, like, a case-by-case basis. Like, if it was a thing where a character might come in and, like, they'll say, oh, my character is, like, a clone of this Sith wizard lady who had, like, all of the Chaos Emeralds. Like, if that was a character, like, what all would you have to change for that?
I would probably give her a pet and then just send her on her way. That would be it.
Okay, so the rest is fine.
The rest is really fine, yeah.
Okay.
But the biggest changes I've had to do are sometimes people will make an NPC and they will say, this character was like Fadan's best friend. And I go, no, you're actually good.
Who's trying to twist your canon that hard? Like,
but
I know $75 is a lot, but it's also like, damn, are you sure you think you have like this tight a hold on things?
Yeah. But there's also, so people do that, and if that's the case, I'll just send them a message like, hey, this gotta go, right? A lot of minor edits happen like on the fly, and one of those, which I hope is okay, I went back and checked all of my reading material after we recorded. Super pronounced her name wrong. Absolutely pronounced her name wrong.
How's it supposed to be pronounced?
I think it's supposed to be Vana, and I just threw a Y in there.
Vana?
Right? And I just threw a Y in there because I was like...
you're going to have to record pickups.
Well, I have a big track history of fucking up my own NPCs' names. Like, Murandine was supposed to be Mugrandine. Kreska was supposed to...
Terrible name, by the way. Murandine is way better.
Murandine is much better. But here's the joy. When I fuck up an NPC's name, it gets a little bit better, right? So, like...
I'm not going to insult the patron who submitted Ivana.
That's true.
Who is that? Did you all say it in the episode? I
Oh,
can't remember
we
if
had
you
to do a
said.
pickup. Sarah did it at the very, very end. I think I cut it out of your recording, but Sarah started her recording again and was like, thank you, Shafiq. And then I unmuted and was like, thank you. And then that was it. It was Scoob's NPC.
Okay, perfect. I didn't know if I was allowed to say Scoob's NPC or if I was like, I was supposed to keep it a secret.
Nah, it's not supposed to be secret. We're supposed to say thank you to them because they paid us a lot of money.
Hell, they did.
But another thing about playing patron NPCs that I already touched on is like I could just throw them everywhere and let them be like essentially red shirts, but I enjoy tying them into stuff a bit more because it's more fun for me. I get more invested in the character because it's not like I'm just doing this as like a whatever, this person is an homage or to whatever. I'm doing it like it's genuinely outsourcing of NPCs of like I want this character to fill a role here, and if they naturally come back up again in a fun way, then that's really cool. Like Syndra, right? where Syndra was like, she very much felt like, I assume to a lot of listeners, like a one and done kind of NPC. And then now she has this very big tie-in of like, the Jeeds have been strongly accused of things. Toll is dead. Ari is gone to ground and is now missing.
Rip Toll, by the way.
Rip Toll. Also, Nathan, I think
went out.
you were the first person ever to make the joke, or I don't even know if you were joking or actually speculating, that it would be Aristotle. And I was like fucking wilded in my, like, I was sitting on my couch. It was like really late at night. And then I read that and I was like, oh, these people are on to me. Right. And then it didn't become a thing for like a year.
I cannot believe that's the case. Like,
You've been...
If I was the very first person, I will be incredibly proud. But, you know, I also was the first person to notice that Artis was definitely a vampire. And that still hasn't been
That's
confirmed
true.
canon yet. So
you have been close about... You've hit the nail on the head for a lot of things, quite honestly.
yeah, I don't know if you've listened to the latest installment of Tinfoilery, but I had my theory that I threw in there.
Yeah?
Fucking
Got him?
I think it's accurate.
It was... Carla told me about them. It was the Warlock one. As soon as she said Warlock, I was like, oh, is that Nathan's?
I hate it. You and Sarah would have too good of an advantage on that.
Yep.
Because you both know my DMing and like storytelling style. So
Yeah.
any theory that I
at
have
the
would
start
be
of this
colored by
episode,
that.
when Nathan goes, Warlocks are really neat. Like, Nathan loves Warlocks.
I just think short rests are fun. That's all.
But yeah, I want to tie NPCs to, Syndra is now tied into like this bigger story. She's become a larger character than herself, and the players really like her, and so she will show back up. So I try to tie the Patreon NPCs to a specific idea I've already had that I think suits them. Right?
Which also exists in that ether of your mind, because there's something you've talked about a lot on the Discord, which is the idea of patron NPCs being in orbit.
Yes.
Where they are like connected to a story beat that the players just have gotten close to, but haven't actually touched yet.
There is a hook here. The players are grazing near it. They might bite it in the impending time. So the character, for all regards, is in orbit. Because I like to think of it as like a constellation of characters, right? So that orbit kind of metaphor fits in nicely with it. And sometimes I would just put them on like a collision course, almost the way Syndra was, or the way Canon Nathan was, where it's like,
hell yeah,
these things are going to occur. The way Vanya also to a point was, where she was in that so I would say, to give an example using that, when Winsler and Serenep first in the last arc, at the start of last arc, went down in search of Ira, they had the option to go left or right or continue forwards, and they opted to go left, and then ran into Ari, and then Ari was like, here are some quests, and then pointed them towards Ira. But if they had gone right, they would have run into a Patreon NPC, and so I would regard that as in orbit in a way, right? And luckily they did not run into her then. Now she can be connected to this plot as well, so it's a good fun time. And if you're a patron, or if you're a to-be patron and you want to make a Patreon NPC, or you've already made one, and you're hearing me say this and think, golly gee, I'd really like my character to be associated with XYZ plot, it's not gonna happen. It's just so impossible.
You don't get that kind of choice.
It's just like,
sorry, I
will read the description you give. Just make a fun character, and I will tie them in a way that I hope is narratively satisfying.
What worked? Hey, patrons, like, or people who want to become patrons. What worked for me was making like the name of the character a meta joke. About how you wanted to appear in canon, and then made them a character who just uses a lot of canons.
There is a point to, if you make a character who I just roll back in my chair and throw my head back in laughter when I read the thing, I will probably put them in the show. Or there's a question in the form for those folks who have filled it out or are going to fill it out that says, does your character have allergies? If you actually answer that question, it bumps you up in the queue like 100%, 1,000%.
Oh my god!
I love when people
answer that question.
We're just throwing
the pure gold into this episode of CNC, aren't we?
Yep, it's true.
Oh,
Yeah, I worry that I worry Patreon NPCs will come off as one note, or just like a one and done kind of character, and I want to avoid that at the best of ability, or to the best of my ability. But that's a lot of other NPCs too, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah, but also like it's also very much up to like the player choice
Exactly.
of like what plot
Yes.
hooks they actually do bite
Yep.
onto. Like if they keep on ignoring the pebble stuff, I have a feeling
It's gonna
Canon
fall.
Nathan,
Yep.
yeah, not gonna show up very much.
Yep, that's true.
Which totally fine. Like
Mhm.
he's tied to that plot. It would be disingenuous for him to then suddenly show up in Ithil being like, "Hey, I'm just carrying around these kegs of powder over here now."
The joy of that is, though, that even if they do ignore the Pebble plot, I think we will have a encounter with Canon Nathan once more because of the plan to give Loud the Slad gunpowder for some fucking reason.
Listen, you get me and Todd Gonzalez in there. We'll take care of Loud the Slad, no problem.
That's another thing we should talk about, is that you also created Todd Gonzalez, which was like a really old joke where I always wanted a mentor. It's based off like a fucking Japanese developers who made American baseball names, old ass joke, and I was like, that's an independent researcher, and always had it in my notes to like, if we run into an independent researcher, I want to make it that. And then all of a sudden one night Nathan just started describing characters, and they described fucking Todd Gonzalez, and I was like, well, that's just too fetching. I'm just too in love with that, and used it the next day. I think it was great.
Thank you very much for letting me have that free one in there.
Yeah, that's a free one. That doesn't always happen. Don't try.
That
me.
only happens if you're going to be like the host of a talk show,
if
you
you're,
know?
If you're the partner of one of the cast members, of which I think we're at capacity, then yeah, you're in luck. Otherwise, shucks.
Yep, oopsie doopsie. Well, that's a good note to sign off on, eh?
What a good episode.
Great episode. Do you want to do the outro?
Okay. Thanks for everyone for listening to this week's episode of CNC. I had a ball. I'm gonna finish this and go eat some fried rice and ice cream. If you enjoyed this, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice. Ideally a high-starred review if you're gonna take the effort to do so. But if you have comments and critiques, otherwise we also accept those. And failing that, if you just want to tell another person about us, like a friend or something, and recommend the show, that does a lot more for us than even leaving a review. If you are into teasers, looking at art, looking at funny retweets, or sending us art, then go follow us on social media at Trials and Trebs on Instagram and Twitter. And again, if you make art, please tag us in it so that we can see it and share it around, and just generally be happy and celebrate the fact that we have so many talented artists in our audience.
Absolutely.
If you want to speak to other people in the audience, then you can join the Discord. There's a link in the description of every episode of CNC and TNT. And if it's not working, feel free to contact us somewhere. We will get you a working link so that you can join on in there. It's a wonderful time. There's good discussion, lots of rampant speculation about things.
And speaking of rampant speculation, if you join the Discord, you can also then send me theories that if you would like to see them used on tinfoilery, that is how I get all of them. They're from DMs from people who are on the Discord server, and it is always so nice to get those in because you are making my job so much easier by sending me the most batshit things you can think of that I can fit into a sentence.
And specifically DMing you and not posting them for everyone to see.
Yes, if you post them in the actual chat, then the cast can see them and then have a leg up, which is not fair, because apparently the only leg up they should have is just getting to know my own personal brand, which is much more of just an investment on their part.
Yeah. And then finally, if you feel like giving us if you feel like helping us out financially, we have a Patreon, and if you have the means to do so, any amount of support you can give us on there is wildly appreciated. It helps with back-end hosting, replacing broken equipment, treating rooms or audio treating rooms, buying groceries and stuff like that.
Not to mention, we also have that, stretch goal of getting improv classes. That way we can make the podcast even better. Like, not just the quality of the sound, but the quality of the performance.
Exactly. Because all of the greatest moments in the show have been improvised, as the nature of the show is an improvised game. And so getting better at that would just make it better for everyone. And then barring that, if you really have if you have deep pockets, the musical episode's right there in the goals, folks.
Hell yeah.
looming on that big old horizon.
I have
and
no
think
idea
that
what that's going to even
is-
look like. I'm so scared for it.
That's up to the musically capable among us.
More power to them.
And I think that wraps it up, Nathan.
Well,
that was a
perfect.
long and rambly one.
Hey, all the better for me. Well, I hope that y'all enjoyed it, because I certainly did. I'm sorry, I do need to cough. And that's just how it is on this bitch of an earth. Thank you all for joining us. And I'll see you next time on Conversations and Catapults.
Bye.
Bye.